has done something, and I already mentioned the phrase, who's walking the talk. Tonight, now we're going to turn to these other people and organizations that have done something. Inside your program tonight, you saw that there was an insert of 7 years of prior winners. Those of you who've been here before have celebrated with them and heard some of their stories. This includes the 22 Nobel Peace Prize winners who got the prize for their work on malaria, who were up on this stage a few years ago. It includes students. It includes all kinds of people, including a 10-year-old girl who came up on the stage last year, who had everybody's thoughts in their head, and everybody's hearts were filled, and she got a huge standing ovation. She swam from Alcatraz Island to San Francisco and donated money to buy malaria bed nets. So there's a huge group, a wonderful group of individuals and organizations, and we are looking for people who get an A for effort, who get an A for impact, and who get an A for being catalysts. And we've got 4 of them here tonight, and Barbara has already mentioned those. Congressman Lee, I'm getting too familiar with you. You're so familiar to us. Okay, so I would like to begin by calling up Deborah Stein and David McGaffey. Come on up. As they're coming up, let me explain to you. Deborah is the interim executive director of a group called Potential Energy. You'll hear her story, and David is coming up because he's an advisor of our organization, has been involved in the selection process of these Global Citizen Awards since the first year, a former State Department official, a professor.
One of the most enduring and critical problems facing the poorest of the poor throughout the world is a source of fuel for cooking, for warmth, for everything else. As a result of that, there are dozens of organizations that have set themselves the goal of creating more efficient stoves that can use less fuel, save money, do something to make the lives of these people better. When we were looking at candidates, one group, Potential Energy, stood out primarily because they had an approach that was different from all of the others. Instead of building the better mousetrap, instead of making a wonderful stove and then spending their efforts trying to persuade people to adopt what they had come up with, Potential Energy went out to Darfur and asked people what they needed. They borrowed a concept from a different field, a customer-centric approach. They took the results of their surveys, took them to some of the best technological minds in the East Bay, and have built and rebuilt and designed and redesigned stoves that have made lives better for people in Darfur, in Sudan, I'm going to Ethiopia. I'm going to stop talking now and introduce Deborah Stein, the acting executive director of Potential Energy of Berkeley.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here and to be nominated for this award. We really appreciate the opportunity, and I'd like to thank the United Nations Association, and also I have with me my colleague and a board member and some of our donors. So we're really happy to be here with you tonight. So I'm going to talk about our work and how it connects to your work. So the issue is that technology is benefiting our lives, but people in the developing world aren't realizing the impact. And this is because they lack access to these technologies. So our our question was, how can we leverage these technologies to help people in the developing world? And our answer is by delivering affordable, efficient technologies that are customized to the needs of the women who use them. So a little bit more about our work. As David mentioned, we have a customer-centric approach. So for our first technology that we've been working with is the Clean Cook Stove. And this Clean Cook Stove has been modified many times, and that's based on the feedback of women in Darfur. We also focus on partnerships and leveraging the strengths of different types of partners. So our research and development of our stoves was done at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and at UC Berkeley. We also partner with humanitarian organizations like Oxfam and also local nonprofits and businesses in the areas where we work. We also focus on evaluation to really collect data to learn more about the impact that we're having. And we work with SIGA here at UC Berkeley to do that. And to date, we have distributed over 32,000 clean cook stoves in the Darfur region of Sudan. And we estimate that the savings so far that have generated from these stoves is almost $60 million. And that's because women are spending a large amount of their income to purchase firewood to cook for their families. And there's an average of 6 household members in Darfur. So just a little bit more about our background. We have Berkeley roots. So we started as the Darfur Stoves Project in 2007 as a volunteer organization with scientists and students in Berkeley. And we've now transitioned to become an independent nonprofit called Potential Energy. And the Darfur Stoves Project is our flagship project and is hopefully the first of many. Our mission is broad, so it's to adapt and scale technologies that improve lives in developing countries. And this gives us room to expand not only to other countries with clean cook stove projects, but eventually other technologies. So we're looking to technologies like solar lighting and water filtration in the coming years. And as I mentioned, we've distributed 32,000 cook stoves in Darfur. And at the very beginning of next year, we'll be starting a test project with 600 stoves in Ethiopia. So I'd like to address this year's theme of alleviation of poverty, inequity, and disparities, and tell you about how our work really relates directly to this year's theme of UN May Day. Clean cook stoves really focus on 4 areas of impact. Health, because women are often exposed to toxic emissions when they're cooking, and by using clean cook stoves, it reduces the amount of emissions that they're exposed to. The environment, people around the world are clear-cutting forests so they have fuel to cook meals for their families, and by using clean cook stoves, they're able to reduce the amount of firewood that's needed. And specifically for the Darfur Stoves Project, we originally started with a focus on safety because women were leaving their displacement camps to collect firewood and they were often being attacked and even killed on these treks. And by using these fuel-efficient stoves, they require less wood, so they're exposed to less danger. And then finally, livelihoods. So that's really what our focus is today. The majority of our stove users are now purchasing their firewood, and they're spending up to a third of their income just to cook meals. And so we're able to save the women about $1 a day just by using the Berkeley Darfur stove. I thought I would take it to a more personal level. So this is Hawa, and she's from El Fasher in North Darfur. And we spoke to her the day that she received her Berkeley Darfur stove, and she was cooking over basically a campfire and taking about 3 hours a day to cook meals for her family, and was spending 33% of her family's income just on wood. And then we talked to her 8 months later after she'd been using the stove, and she was very proud to have this durable, modern appliance in her home. She told us that she was only spending 1 hour a day cooking because the stove is so fuel efficient and cooks so much faster, and that she was saving $354 a year, which is maybe not that much to us, but the average household income for our users is $2,000 a year. So that's a huge amount of their family's money. Looking forward, we have a lot more just of the Darfur region of Sudan to address. There are about 1 million households who are cooking over an open fire using firewood. In Ethiopia, there are over 14 million households who use wood as their primary fuel source. And then in sub-Saharan Africa, there are 92 million people who cook over an open fire using wood. On a global level, half of the world cooks and heats over an open fire, which is about 3 billion people. 4 million people die each year from breathing in this cooking smoke, and that's actually more than AIDS and malaria combined. And women and children are the most affected because they're the ones who are in the kitchen exposed to the smoke. But we're not alone. The Potential Energy is part of a larger initiative that was actually launched by your friends at the UN Foundation. It's called the Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves, and they just celebrated their 3rd anniversary. And we have, as you can see, some high-profile ambassadors for our cause. And we're all working together to contribute to the goal of distributing 100 million clean cookstoves by the year 2020. So thank you again. We really appreciate this honor, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me after the dinner.